Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Miss Hicks. I hope you had a good couple of days. I hope you got to look at our danger passage because in a little while we're going to look at that and look at how we answered it, okay? But like the other day, our first thing today is we're going to work with our first objective, which is to use our combined knowledge of roots and affixes to accurately become familiar with unfamiliar multisyllabic words. How can we figure out a new word? By breaking it down into parts. It's a very huge skill that you will use forever and ever and ever. I used it the other day, and I'm older than y'all. You'll be able to identify suffixes and their meanings and properly add them to root words. Okay, so you'll be able to work with these words. A suffix, we talked about this the other day, is a set of letters or affixes that comes at the end of a root word that changes its meaning. Example, big. We've all heard about big. Then you have bigger, means it's a little bigger. And then you have biggest. You're the biggest kid in the classroom, or you're the biggest kid on the playground. Suffixes can change the part of speech, like teach. Teach is a verb. I teach. But I am a teacher, okay? So that's a noun because I'm a person, not a place, not a thing. What about react? It is a verb. We add ION to the end of it, and it becomes a reaction, okay? Let's look at some more suffixes. We have ist, which if we put it at the end of the word, it means one skilled in something. Able, able to be. Shun, the art of. Full, full of something. Pertaining to, like, similar to. Able to be. Ish, of the nature of. Ous, full of. One who does. Hood, the state of being. Ward, the direction of. Ness, quality of. Meant, act or process of. Now, you're not going to have to remember all these. Don't expect you to, but we are going to work with a few of them. And like the first, colorful. The root word is color. Full means it is full of color. Okay? So let's look at this sentence. The scientist did more tests after he ate. Which one of the words in that sentence has a suffix? Yes. Whoa. What happened? Sorry. Okay. Scientist. Yes, scientist has the suffix. And this means one skilled in science. Okay, very good. What about the next sentence? A responsible bicyclist will wear a helmet. What do you see? Which one of those words has a suffix? Maybe there's more than one. Yes. We have responsible and bicyclist. Just like the first one for scientist, bicyclist is one who's skilled with bicycles. Skilled at riding them. Maybe they're skilled with working on them. Responsible. The sentence says a responsible bicyclist will wear a helmet. To be responsible means that you are able to be responsible. Okay? Look at number 3. Jack announced his engagement to Jill over dinner. What do you see? Which one has a suffix? Engagement. Okay? The act of being engaged. To be engaged means, in this sentence, it's Jack is getting married to Jill. Okay, so it is the act of asking her to marry him. All right, number 4. Gina could not wait to move out of the neighborhood and into the country. Which word do you see a suffix in there? Very good. Neighborhood. Okay, good job. Okay, let's move to reading. We are working again, quoting accurately from the text when explaining what a text says explicitly and when drawing inferences. We're still going to be working with inferences. So our essential question is, how do readers construct meaning from what they read? When we infer, we're reading between the lines. Okay? So we're still working with it. Let's look at this chart that we talked about the other day. We talked about inferencing. This is a different chart, a different way to think of it. Making inferences. When authors of books don't tell everything about the characters or about the events, and the readers have to use the story clues and our background knowledge or schema to make an inference. Say that word again. Say that word with me again. Schema. It is what you are thinking. It's what you know, what you bring with you when you read. Okay? So we take our text clues, we take our schema, and that's our inference. Okay? So what do we know about something? And that's what we infer. When you're writing about it, you might could start with, I can infer something. Or you might could say, this could mean. Or perhaps, or maybe. Okay? Those are some words that help with our transition when we're writing about what we're reading. And that's something that we're going to do here in a little bit. But I'd like to start off with this picture. What do you see? What do you see? I see a coach getting real excited. I see a football player who's holding the ball. You know, I don't know, it looks like maybe he's running and looking behind him. So what can you infer? I could infer maybe he intercepted the ball and is running for a touchdown. Or maybe he caught a really big pass and is running for a touchdown. It doesn't tell me. This is what I know. This is what I'm inferring. Let's look at another one. Wow. This, what do I see? I see a football player dunking his coach with water. Okay, what do I know? When does this happen? In my experience of watching football with my boys, the coach gets dunked with water when they win a really big game. Like maybe they won the national championship or maybe they won the SEC championship. I don't know. I'm inferring that because it doesn't tell me. There's no titles. There's nothing to tell me that. That's just what I'm inferring. What I see is not an inference. That is just what you actually see. That is your text clues. Okay? So let's work with some words. Let's figure out what we're doing. Harold grunted as he walked into the house. He carried 4 paper bags in his arms, each one filled to the brim. Suddenly, he tripped, and one of the bags fell, spilling oranges, a loaf of bread, and 2 sticks of butter onto the floor. Wow, at least I didn't drop the eggs, he exclaimed. The question, where has Harold been before this happened? What can we infer? What do we know? Well, I know he had bags in his arms. I know that he had paper bags in his arms. I know that he had oranges, loaf of bread, 2 sticks of butter. Okay? Where do I get those things that they're put in a bag? You're right, a grocery store. So he, Harold, we always start with our character, or re-answering the question. Harold had been to the grocery store. That answers the question partly. But I need to know, how do I know this? That's the second part of the question. How do I know that? My background knowledge told me, so I could say, I inferred this because of the butter, eggs, oranges, and bread. I've answered both parts of my question, and that's always vitally important that you answer everything that a question is asking. Don't leave anything out. Let's look at another one. Each day before Reese goes to work, she puts on her brown uniform, sturdy work boots. She has to get to work early because a lot of creatures, big and small, are counting on her for their breakfast. Later in the day, she will make sure their habitats are clean. Sometimes she gets dirty at work, but she enjoys seeing all the people who come to visit, peeking through fences and windows as she works. Where does Renee work? And how do you know this? Where does she work? I don't know. Gosh, she wears a brown uniform. Who wears a brown uniform? The UPS guy wears a brown uniform. You think she works for UPS because she has a brown uniform? Well, that's just the part of the passage. Let's keep on going. It said something about big and small creatures wanting their breakfast. Big and small creatures. Is that like big and small animals? Creatures, animals? I think so. Their habitats. Wow, no, she doesn't work for UPS. Gosh, she works for the zoo. She's a zookeeper. She's a zoologist. Okay? So where does Renee work? Renee works at the zoo. Okay? Remember though, I have this part. I must answer. How do I know? Let's look at our stem. How about we use perhaps? Perhaps her brown uniform helps her blend into the habitats. This keeps her safe while she feeds the animals. Okay? Let's look at another one. One more. And then we'll read danger. Lucy sighed happily as she curled into a ball and licked her fur. After a long afternoon of laying in the sun, she was happy to be snuggled up on her soft bed. She purred contently as she closed her eyes, ready for a nap. Suddenly, she heard a buzzing noise. Her eyes snapped open and she twitched her ears. She spotted a fly landing nearby. Lucy watched it carefully for a moment and then, pounce, she caught it. Who is Lucy? How'd you know? Well, Lucy's an animal, right? She has fur. She a dog? No, she's a cat, because dogs don't purr. What do dogs do? They growl. So Lucy's a cat. We know this because she's purring and she's taking her nap and she pounced on a fly. Okay? Good job. All right, I told you that we would look at this article, Danger, which you have in your packets. Let's read it. The noise of the plane changed. The roar that had been rattling him from both sides of the whole trip went suddenly lopsided. The pilot yelled something. George couldn't tell what he was saying. Diggs reached over and yanked George's seatbelt to make sure that it was tight. And it occurred to George that the pilot must have been telling them to buckle up. The plane banked again, and George looked down at the window, out of the window. He was frightened and confused. They seemed to be changing directions. All he could make out below him, as far as he could see, was a sea of trees. Where the trees stopped, there were mountains. They continued on in this lopsided noise for a few minutes. Then the engine roar was gone completely. For a moment, the very briefest moments, George experienced utter silence for the first time in his 11 years. "What is it? What's going on?" Diggs yelled. "Everything's fine," the pilot yelled back. "We're going to land." "What do you mean, fine? It doesn't sound fine." George felt like he was going to be sick. The plane kept going and going, getting lower, but not slowing down. Where were they going to land? Remember, all he could see were trees. He still couldn't see anything but trees. It was more trees than George had ever seen over the pilot's shoulder. Out of the windshield of the plane, he could see the blue-gray of mountains speeding towards them. Blue-gray of the mountains speeding toward them. Then the plane banked again, and George saw a blue and almost perfectly round lake. Then trees and trees and more trees. And then he saw it, what the pilot must have seen too, the thing that they were circling around, a flat, empty field surrounded on all four sides by trees. The trees were mesmerizing. For most of the time after the engine stopped working, it had felt like they were still flying. But as they got closer and closer to the ground, it stopped feeling like flying and started feeling like falling. George's breath left his body with a sudden whoosh. He felt like a balloon that had been let go in the air and was now speeding towards its limp end. He couldn't breathe or cry out. Later, he would remember that right then everything seemed to slow down. He saw the glasses slip off Diggs's nose and seemed to hover in the air. Everything seemed to get dark. Not a grayish-black dark, but a green and purple dark. Outside of the plane window, for a moment, George felt like he could see, fully articulated, every leaf was moving slowly towards them. And that's how George knew that despite his calm and his best effort, the pilot had missed the field. Ah! That's kind of scary. How would you like to be flying in a plane and then all you see is trees and know you have to land? That would be scary. Keep that feeling in your head so when we go to answer our questions, we know what's going on. Remember the story. What happens in the plane in the beginning of the story? Do you remember? They're flying, and then all of a sudden, one engine stops. So what happens to the plane in the beginning? In the beginning of the story, the planes, or one of the plane's engine stops. And how do I know this? I know this because it told me that it sounded lopsided. Why does everything suddenly get silent? Do you remember what it said? Let's go back. Well, let's go back and look at it just real quickly. They continued the lopsided for a minute, and the engine roar was gone completely. So when the engine roar is gone completely, that means that both engines have stopped. Excuse me. it gets suddenly silent because both engines stop. How do I know this? I know this because my background knowledge. Think about when you're in the car. When you turn the engine off, you don't hear anything. It gets quiet. Okay? Where do you think that they are? Where do you think they are? Well, we know that they're in a plane. And we know that they're flying because it tells us that. So this is asking me an inference question. Where do you think they are? Do we have mountains in Mobile, Alabama? No. It talks about seeing mountains. Where are there mountains? Maybe out west. Also bringing to mind, this reminds me of a book I've read, Hatchet, and he was flying in Canada. So maybe they're in Canada or out west. I don't know. These are just by working with my schema again, okay? What is the significance of the field? Significance. We got to know what that means. It's asking us, why is the field important? Why is the field important? Yes, it is important because that's where they're going to land. That's where they're going to try and land. They're in all the sea of trees. Can you land a plane in a sea of trees? No. All right, let's look at our next set of questions. Sorry. They're down here. What is happening in the end of the story? The end of the story, they are trying to fly. They're trying to land the plane in the field. Do they land it in the field? No, they don't. So what do we think is going to happen next? What would happen next? If you are an optimistic person like I am, I think they land the plane safely on the very edge of the field. Okay? All right. Let's have some fun with words now. Go back to our prefixes and suffixes. All right, unibrow. Remember Monday? We talked about some prefixes. We talked about una, bi, and tri. Okay? I thought this would be fun. A unibrow. Does anybody know what a unibrow is? It's where you have one eyebrow going all the way across. Unidirectional. That's a big word. What do you see in there? Una, we know, is one. Direction. What does direction mean? Somebody can give you directions or you can move in a direction. So one direction. One directional. Unidirectional. That means going in one direction. Unigenerational. Wow, that's a big word. Let's see. We have, again, una, meaning one. Generational. That generation, that's people born at the same time, like you guys would be, I think, the Gen Xers, okay? I'm part of the very end of the baby boomers. We all have names. All right, so one generation. Wrote this little sentence. Downtown has too many unidirectional streets. My husband says I look like I have a unibrow trying to figure out which way to go because I'm trying to concentrate and my brows go together, okay? Let's look at these. Biannual. Remember, what does bi mean? Bi means two. Okay, guys, we'll work with some more stuff on Monday. I hope you come back to see us. Sorry for our technical difficulties today. Have a great day.